Just about every finance team on the planet processes invoices, and most of them, they're still doing it by hand. You know the drill, opening up PDFs, manually pulling out all the fields, trying to cross-check them with purchase orders. It's tedious, it's repetitive, and honestly, it's a perfect job for AI. AI can work consistently at an incredible speed, and it never ever gets tired. So in this explainer, we're going to give you the step-by-step playbook to get this deployed. So let's just start with a really direct question for you and your team. Are you still stuck in that manual grind? Opening PDF after PDF, copying and pasting data, chasing down every little mismatch? Well, if that sounds a bit too familiar, then this explainer is your practical guide to finally change that, and you can start this week. Okay, let's get right into it. The core idea here is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. An AI system can take basically any invoice format you throw at it, automatically pull out all the key data, and then match it against your purchase orders and contracts. And here's the most important part. It flags the suspicious ones for a real human to review. It's all about automating the 95% of boring, repetitive work so your experts can focus on the 5% that really matters. So here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with what this system actually does for you. Then we'll get into what you need to get started, the step-by-step of deployment, and how to know if you're even doing a good job. We'll also cover the absolutely critical governance layer, and finally, wrap up with the common mistakes you'll want to avoid. It's the complete playbook, from start to finish. All right, let's jump into our first section, the core use case. We're going to break down exactly what this technology brings to the table that, frankly, manual processing just can't compete with, especially at scale. So this whole process really boils down to three key functions. First up is extraction. The AI just takes in all your invoices, doesn't matter if they're PDFs, emails, or even images, and it turns that mess into clean, structured data. Then comes the matching. It automatically compares that data against all your approved lists, and it'll flag everything from a price difference to a vendor you've never heard of. And finally, there's routing. It only sends the flagged, risky invoices to a person for review, which means all the clean ones just sail right on through. Okay, so you get the value. But what do you actually need to get this thing off the ground? Now don't worry, this isn't some massive enterprise shopping list. It's actually a pretty simple checklist to get a pilot project up and running in just 4 weeks. All right, here's your checklist. First, you need some data. A sample of about 200 to 500 recent digital invoices will do. You need your approved vendor master list, and honestly, a simple spreadsheet is totally fine. Go ahead and pull the key contract terms for maybe your top 20 vendors. Now, this one is crucial. You need a written list that defines exactly what counts as an anomaly. You also have to name one person who is responsible for reviewing anything that gets flagged. And finally, of course, you need the tool, which might even be a module that's already in your existing ERP system. All right, so once you have all those requirements lined up, you're ready for the main event. Here are these specific, actionable steps to take you all the way from prep to go live. Okay, now listen up, because this is probably the most important part. Step 1, you have to write down what you're looking for before you ever touch the software. That document becomes your guide for setting everything up, and it's your proof for any auditors down the line. Then you prep your data, run your sample invoices to see how accurate the extraction is, and then you configure all the rules based on your criteria. Now, step 5 is absolutely non-negotiable. Run the AI side by side with your manual process for 2 weeks to get it calibrated. And finally, you activate your human reviewer and go live with all your governance firmly in place. So you've got it deployed, it's up and running, but how do you know if it's actually any good? This next part is all about recognizing what success really looks like. These are the key metrics you should be looking for. First up, 95%. That's your magic number. Your system has to achieve at least 95% accuracy in pulling the data from your standard invoices. If you're not hitting that number, you gotta go back and figure out what's tripping it up before you move on. Next, I want you to think of your anomaly detection rate as a Goldilocks zone. You're aiming for a flag rate somewhere between 2 and 5%. If it's below 2%, you're probably missing some real problems. But if it's above 5%, you're just creating a ton of noise for your reviewer. That range is the sweet spot that tells you your rules are calibrated just right. And the last 2 metrics are all about operations. That exception queue, the list of flagged invoices, it has to be cleared by your reviewer within 24 hours. If that starts backing up, you've got a problem. And this is a big one. During your parallel testing, the system must have 0 false negatives for the big stuff, like duplicate invoices or unapproved vendors. It has to catch those every single time. No exceptions. All right, now for a part you absolutely cannot afford to overlook. An AI tool without human oversight? It's just a black box. So let's talk about the non-negotiable governance layer that you have to design in from day one. 3 things here are absolutely essential. 1, a named person is accountable for that exception queue. There can be no ambiguity. 2, you have to do a weekly review of your flag rate for the first 3 months. This helps you spot if the system is starting to drift. And 3, the system has to produce a complete audit trail for every single flagged item, what was flagged, when it was flagged, and what decision the reviewer made. This is not optional, it's a must-have. We've talked about what to do, so now let's talk about what not to do. These are the common pitfalls that can totally derail an otherwise successful project. Avoiding these is going to save you a world of headaches. Look, the single biggest mistake people make, hands down, is failing to write down their anomaly criteria first. Without that document, you've just got a black box running on rules that nobody can explain. With that simple document, you have a system that is governable, it's transparent, and it's auditable. The choice really is that stark. Okay, 3 other quick pitfalls to watch out for. First, don't set your flag rate artificially low just because you're worried about the reviewer's workload. That completely defeats the purpose of fraud detection. Second, never, ever skip that 2-week parallel processing period. That's your only chance for real-world calibration. And finally, don't just treat the exception queue like an inbox to be cleared. You have to analyze it. The patterns you find in there are the most valuable fraud intelligence you're going to get. If you only take one thing away from this entire explainer, please let it be this. The success of this kind of project isn't about which fancy AI tool you choose. It's all about the preparation, the written criteria, the clean data, and the clear governance that you build around it. And this timeline just shows how achievable this really is. Week 1, you're writing criteria and prepping your data. Week 2, you're configuring the rules and running your tests. Week 3 is all about that parallel processing and calibration. And by week 4, you can go live with your full governance in place. It's a tangible 4-week project, not some year-long ordeal. So I'll just leave you with this one final thought to take back to your team. What percentage of your invoices do you think are genuinely anomalous? You know, the process of just trying to answer that question, that's the very first step toward building a system that can find them for you.